Breathing and breathing.
I hope most of you are in this. You are nervous about being in the. Oh, no, I don't think it's going to be public. Is it going to be public?
You go on, public. You go on, do it to the world.
Okay, give it to the world.
It doesn't happen.
All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the first time I've really done a walk on a retreat, so I'm only really just coming into my own retreat here, aren't I? Like I said, I've been processing a lot, I've been taking a lot of notes, but I'm really just going to see where we go, and I feel that this weekend is a huge weekend of confronting things, having things come up, releasing things, and your natural instinct when stuff starts to come up is your old patterns and programs will resurface, which will mean you'll want to start presenting avoidant behavior. You'll want to run away, disassociate, or distract yourself. That's the three sort of primary things that we do. So, you know, being in this energy, it's very difficult to do those things because we're around people and we might not want to be around people. Why don't you want to be around people when you feel like that?
Insecurity, they're a mirror.
They're a mirror. You're being seen.
Yeah.
Your shadow side is being seen by other people. And we don't like that, right? We don't want our shadow side to be seen by other people. We just want them to see the mask that we choose them to see on any given day. And when the shadows come out, we go and hide, right? We run away, we hide. And then when we've managed to like stuff it down somewhere, we come back out with our little mask and we're all like happy, joy, and or we can, you know, be a bit angry or whatever, that's okay. There's certain things that we don't mind people seeing, but the real vulnerability, we don't want people to see. It doesn't feel good, doesn't feel comfortable. So here, it's very hard because we're surrounded by people, and yet that's the best thing, you know, to get really uncomfortable is to allow those people to come and hold space for you, is to allow those people to be around you and see you, okay? And in my last Reiki master, I'm going to wear these ones, it's kind of a little bit too much, a little bit too little. We did a wee exercise with Charlotte, and
Oh.
I'm thinking about doing that again. I'm going to see how we go. I'm going to see how we go, but we are going to push them. Okay, so it was a visibility exercise, and it made her very, very uncomfortable. And yeah, she was really, really uncomfortable being seen. Even though she seems quite extrovert, even though she seems like very open, when we got into the real vulnerability, the true vulnerability, she couldn't cope with being seen. And so, you know, that was really interesting to me, and I thought about that quite a bit since I was really mean and made her do that. I decided I want to do it with more people.
Middle of a circle of people, and she made them say nice things to her.
It was horrible.
Honestly, I have never in my whole entire life felt so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Avoidant behavior. Because people were making eye contact, people were delving into her depths, and they were activating something in her. And they were activated in some of her deepest insecurities. And it was incredibly uncomfortable for her. So we will be doing a couple of exercises tomorrow. But I'm going to do a different exercise today. So I want to talk first about the energetic marketplace. The energetic marketplace is a lot like a normal marketplace. And we trade goods, right? We give and receive, and sometimes you get ripped off, and then that makes you angry, bitter, or resentful, and other times you come out better off, and other times it's balanced, right? So it's just like an actual marketplace. And just like in an actual marketplace, you know, if you get beaten down in price, you feel resentful because you feel taken advantage of, right? And it's the same with energy. If somebody comes in and they're stepping into your energy field and they're being controlling or aggressive, or you are being controlling or aggressive, then you're going to feel that imbalance. You're either going to energetically take from someone, or they're going to energetically take from you. And so the hardest thing in the world is to learn how to hold your energy balance in a world full of imbalance, right? Because the world is very imbalanced, and you are not always going to get what you deserve. And sometimes you're going to get more than you deserve. So this is the imbalance that we have to learn how to hold in all its forms. And and so whenever you know, we're in a relationship with a friend or a partner or our children or anyone else, you know, these tend to be the three areas that we are most hurt by people, right? These three areas. Whenever we're in this kind of relationship, we are, you know, operating from our programs until we're not. But we have to learn how to hold balance in a relationship that isn't necessarily balanced. And you can, whatever you, wherever there's a need, just like in a marketplace, for example, you know, it's like, oh, well, we don't have, you know, we don't have anyone selling earrings. So somebody sees that and they think, you know what, I'm going to bring in some earrings and I'm going to make some money. And I'm just going to, you know, take that piece of the market. And it's the same with energy. Wherever there's a need, a vacuum is created and someone's going to come in and fill it. Okay. So if you have all these insecurities and you need external validation in order to feel like a human being, then you're going to attract in gurus and narcissists and controlling people until you learn how to give yourself value, right? Until you learn how to self-nourish and fill up your own love tank and all of that sort of stuff. And so that vacuum is always going to be there. Every one of those people serves a purpose to reflect to you constantly until you learn how to self-nourish. Because the biggest thing that we never taught as children is how to self-soothe, right? We are never taught that. All the most important things in life we are not taught at home in general, unless we're very lucky, and we're not generally taught it at school. And so we grow up without these really important tools. I'm just going to get a chair because I feel like a teacher.
Yeah, and
what with my big socks and my pretty dress. Okay, I should have like some fancy retreat outfits with like all this stuff. Oh, that's not me. Right. So there's no point, like we can sit there, right, and talk about the narcissist that came into our life, and we can talk about, you know, we can be upset our whole life at how someone's treated us. But the simple fact is, if every single one of you stood up and said, hell to the no, every time anyone like that walked into your life, they couldn't exist, right? If everyone was just like, oh, it's simple, you know, you can just like take that attitude right away, and it doesn't serve me. So, you know, if we all did that,
Yeah.
how can they exist? There's no longer a vacuum, right? So it's really important to understand this blame game that we get caught up in, and the poor me syndrome, and the victim syndrome, and this feeling of, I have no control, I have to sit here and put up with this, look what I have to put up with. No, it's not true. The only reason someone like that can exist in your life is because you allow it. But why do we allow it? We allow it because of our programming mind. So I'm going to go more into the programming side tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to talk about the soul contracts and ancestral contracts, and how that comes through for me, how I see it. And as with anything, you know, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Maybe you're ready for some information, maybe you're not, and maybe some of what I'm saying you're thinking that's a load of bollocks, and other things might really resonate. Just take what resonates. Don't take anything that doesn't. I can only give you my perspective, and everyone comes from a different angle. You know, every psychic you talk to, every medium you see, every healer you see, they receive differently. And you're a room full of healers, so you know you will understand that. You know, how you receive is different from the person next to you, and the way you share your gifts is different. So it presents differently for everyone, because it would be bloody boring otherwise, wouldn't it? If we all look the same and worked in the same way. Is that making sense? So we have, like, you know, we have to reprogram ourselves, and you know, I'll be going through some stuff tomorrow, but one of the, you know, the biggest thing that we have to learn is how to self-soothe, self-nourish, and fill up our own love tank. And you know, if I had a penny for every time that someone has said to me that, you know, but I just love him, or but I can't do that sometimes, or you know, something like this, I can't put down in place much might reject me. But yes, you might get rejected. You could. However, if you don't ever set a boundary, if you don't ever put a loving, powerful boundary in place, then you are going to be treated like a piece of crap over and over and over until you learn how to do it. So at whatever cost, your greatest gift to anyone who's around you is going to be learning how to put boundaries in place, because then they have nothing to latch onto. And when they have nothing to latch onto, you push them into either doing it with someone else, where they, you know, we have to learn this domino effect of healing, but they either get pushed into someone else, or they get pushed into self-reflection. And that self-reflection is really powerful. You know, that's the most powerful gift we can give ourselves, and it's the most powerful gift we can give anyone else. So I thought that, you know, what I would do is a little chart that I've done with some of you in Reiki. Is that working? I'm going to do a whiteboard. This is fun. No.
You have a whiteboard pen in your.
My own whiteboard pen. Use the big one. The big one? Okay. Oh yeah. I'm a square. Yeah. Okay. Divine feminine, divine masculine, inverted feminine, inverted masculine. Okay, so give me some examples of what you see as divine feminine. I'm gonna start. Okay? Compassion, nurturing, vulnerability,
Creative manifestation.
Strength. Wisdom. Sensitivity. Intuition.
oh, what about wild, what about sensual,
Grace.
grace? What about one of my favorite words? Okay, give me some examples of the divine masculine.
Boundaries.
Protection.
Protection,
Presence.
hmm? Reverent of divine feminine. That's a really important one for me. What was that last one? Provider, yeah, that is a natural divine masculine. Okay, we haven't got there yet. Yeah, we're in divine masculine. Yeah, I know, I think that's quite interesting. That one, reverent of divine feminine. Hmm? Action. Mm. Holding, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Beautiful, okay. Okay, let's go to the inverted feminine. Manipulative, that's a big one for us. Yeah. Victim, yeah. Rescuer, yeah.
Resistant.
And the other one is, needy. Needy and over compromising.
People pleaser.
People pleaser. What was that last one? Over.
Overly sexual.
Oh, overtly sexual. Yeah, okay. See how easy that was? We didn't have any trouble coming up with the inverted feminine, did we? Unworthy. Boundaryless. Fluid boundaries. Okay. All right, what about the inverted masculine?
Oh my exes. Hang on.
Controlling? You might have something to say on this one.
Toxic. Controlling.
Hang on, guys.
Lying. Cheating.
Controlling twice, that's the same.
Median.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Aggressive.
What's that? Like emotionally abusive.
Yeah.
I'm rolling, yeah. Emotionally available, yet just not present. You're beginning. There you go. Did you get the pizza? Aggressive.
Defensive.
Yeah, it's probably so like salty or like salty, like
Dominating.
needing.
Yeah. Put me on both of them.
Yeah.
For me. For me, no one understands me. Who's been there? Nobody gets me. Nobody's sorting me out. Okay, so this is where we want to be, right? And that's where we mask up and we go out and we're like, oh, you know, really loving and we're, you know, we show everyone our prettiness. And then what happens is we come home and the people that are the closest to us, our closest friends, partners and children, see us without the mask because we're not strong enough to hold it in place all the time, right? So when we get triggered, we jump either into here or into here, okay? So depending on our programming, and we can jump into any one of those places. And so we go, you know, we're all compassionate and we're giving to our partner, but then our partner's acting like an asshole. And so we start becoming manipulative and jealous. We move into our inverted to mirror the fact that they're inverted, right? And this is where you've got to understand the front facing and the back facing, the two conversations that you're having every time you talk to anyone. You're having the hello, 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 lovely to see you, and the oh my God, I wish I'd never bumped into you, you know, like get me out of here as fast as I can. And they're actually listening to your energy conversation. They're not actually, they're listening, they're looking at your words and they're going, oh, that fucking bitch doesn't want to see me. And they're tuning in to the back end, right? They're not tuning into your words. They're like, you know, if they're walking off going, yeah, whatever. And so our biggest problem is learning how to align our back end with our front end at all times in authenticity, okay? That's your authenticity, is when your back end and your front end are fully aligned. And instead of like, you have this, oh, you know, it's nice to see you. Yeah, great. Okay, well, see you later, you know, So you're being authentic, but you're not being a cow, right? So it's learning how to pull it together so that you are authentic and truthful without being mean. And it takes practice. It's not a natural, if you haven't grown up with that being a natural state, then it's not a natural flow to move into that. But what happens is when you meet someone who's in their inverted, you start to mirror them by moving into your inverted, right? Does that make sense? So we do that because we have a deep fear of being seen, being vulnerable, being made a fool of, being ashamed, and that fear overrides our authenticity. And so suddenly we, you know, if we've grown up and we've never been in our divine feminine or holding our divine masculine, then we are going to be living in the inverted, right? Until we become aware that we're actually in the inverted.
And we start, you know, at some point we start waking up and going, actually, I don't like this behavior. Like you'll have these moments of like, and you'll suddenly overcompensate, and you'll be giving everything to everyone, and like but you haven't actually stepped out of here. You're still in here. It's just that you've now got some awareness that you're in there and you don't want to be there, but it takes time to start moving out of it, right? You can't do any of the divine masculine and the divine feminine without boundaries. Okay, if you don't have boundaries, then you are never in your divine feminine or your divine masculine. Never. Because if you've got fluid boundaries, you're giving away your power, and it's just as simple as that. It's like, if you don't have loving boundaries consistently in place, then you're simply not living in your power at all. So I just want to make that really clear. And the same with the men, right? Like we kind of, what we tend to do is we tend to blame people, and we want them to change so that we can get back into our divine feminine. Does that make sense? So we're like, oh, you know, if I could just get a job that paid lots of money. Oh, if I could just, if he just, you know, noticed me more and was more romantic, if he just did this, then I could be back in here. And I can, you know, and I can come back. So we're waiting for someone else to make a change, to give us permission to be who we're meant to be. That doesn't work. I've tried it. Really doesn't work. And what the only way that you can ever create change in someone else is by leading by example. Okay. There's no other way. You simply cannot change someone by force. But what will happen is we go, oh, well, he's such an asshole to me. He doesn't see me. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't notice, doesn't buy me any nice things. And so I'm just going to be a bitch. And we start becoming a bit of a bitch, you know, and we start being needy, or we just pick. Like, that's what I'm really bad at, is just getting into that picky, you know, and I have to really pull myself out of that. Like, even now, I have to, you know, I can have, like, my kids will say to me, Mummy, you told us to tell you when you're overreacting to things and when you're being a bit mean, and I just want to say you're being a bit mean and you're overreacting. and I have to, you know, kind of breathe a bit, because it's usually when I'm feeling quite triggered that they'll say something like that. And, you know, I have to do some breathing, and then I have to realize that I have actually told them to say that. Like, I've told them to pull me up on my behavior, because otherwise I'm programming them through fear to either be afraid of me or to do as I tell them, even if it's not resonating with them. And they're going, well, that doesn't make any sense, you know, because I get hit up, and, you know, and then I start barking orders, and then I start, you know, it's often like, I'm just going to put it out there. It's often before a Reiki workshop. I'll be there at 8 in the morning, like, oh, and they're like, Mummy, that's not a very good Reiki energy to start the day. And then I have to actually pull myself back and kind of go, oh God, look at me, bounce. So the biggest thing you can do is understand this and realize when you are jumping, right? Recognize when what's coming out of you, even if it is energetically not saying anything, just like that your energy field is projecting the inverted. Okay, Your mouth doesn't have to project it for your energy field to project it. And your energy field is 10 times stronger than what comes out of your mouth. Okay. So, does anyone have any questions about that?
I've got a question.
Yes.
So, like, an example is that I can be like, in my divine feminine, it's amazing, everything's great, and then I'll get a message from the kid's dad, and then I'm instantly triggered,
Exactly.
like, instantly
Yeah.
into this,
Yeah.
like, absolute nutcase. That's the only way I can put it. What is a tool that I can do, like, to bring myself out of that? You know, like, I always am like, okay, I won't respond, so I don't respond, but my energy is still like in this, fuck you.
Yeah. Right. So the first thing is awareness, right? You have to understand that A, you're feeling triggered, and B, you're making a jump out of your box, because the simple fact is the most challenging people are our biggest teachers, right? It's easy to be love and light around the Buddhist monk, you know, it's easy to go and sit there and go, oh, you know, I'm so great, and I'm totally in my divine feminine, and, you know, because he's not challenging you in any way to hold. But if you took a really challenging person to a Buddhist monk, he will just maintain, right? He will not be jumping all over the show, and you can be like, whoa, 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 poke, 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 and he won't have any response to that, because he's meditating enough that he is self-nourishing, self-soothing, and refilling himself from an internal source and from source, so that he does not need any validation from the external. Okay, so the first thing is to understand awareness, and you're really good at that, because you'll message me and you'll go, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. I've been so triggered, right? So you've got a lot of awareness. And the next thing is to validate it, right? Because the biggest thing that we miss in childhood is validation. What we get is our child comes along and they've hurt their toe, and they go, or they come along and they go, and you're just like, what kid hit you? And you know, your instant thing is to get up, march over there, did you hit my child, you know, and the child is not actually looking for you to do that, right? The child, unless you teach them that, the child is actually looking for you to cuddle them and say, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry. How are you feeling? Did he hurt your feelings, or did he hurt your body? Like, they want the validation. And when you take a few minutes and you do that and you give the child the validation, they don't need you to sort any problem out. Then they're like, okay, I'm fine now, you know, and they march back out and they carry on as normal, right? Took me a really, really long time to understand that. And, you know, I was a very triggered parent, and someone gave me this book, a really good friend gave me this book, and it was just a little book, and it was all about how we skip the middle step with children, which is validation of their problem. We go straight to trying to solve the problem, and actually 90% of the time, children are not looking for you to solve their problem. They're actually just looking for the validation, so they come back to you as their anchor for safety. And when they know that you're there and you are engaged, not external, oh, let me sort that out. When you're engaged and you're looking at them and you're really hearing what they're saying and validating it, then 90% of the time, there's nothing else to do. There's no problem to fix. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm told too, right? Like rescuer. You know, you see you have an adult problem and then the partner comes rushing in and tries to solve that for you. But we just want to.
Yeah. Actually, rescuer could be in the inverted masculine as well, because men always want to solve a problem. We have a different rescuer complex, but men always want to solve a problem. And we want the validation. We just want, so, you know, I'm going to say to my guy, like, I feel like, oh, and I'm going to come in and all I want is a hug and I just want you to say there, you know. So I tell him what I want, and it works really well. Like, he's like, oh, you know, he folds me up in a big hug, and it's, you know, the thing is, they want to know, and we expect them to just get it. You know, why can't you just get it? Like, and the thing is, when we tell them what our needs are, how many of you know how to ask for what you want?
I don't even know how to identify what I want. Yeah.
How many of you know what you want? Okay, and how many of you know how to ask for what you want? 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in friendships, even in family, you know, this is what my needs are. Are you able to meet them? Like, you don't have to say it like that, but
It's not comfortable.
comfortable.
You have to be smart and just say, "No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be whatever you want."
No, well, they can.
They can.
And the question is, can you be okay with that?
Yeah, that's the key.
Can you be okay with that? Because what they feel, what they think, what other people think is none of your business. That's their business. But we become so obsessed with what people think of us. Like, we spend hours like, oh, people saying that about me. They judge me. They think I'm this. Like, you know, we become obsessed with what people are thinking or saying about us, or, you know, whether we're the topic of someone's conversation at lunch, or, and, you know, and we build it up into this ludicrous, huge thing. Whereas, you know,
They're probably
What is
not
it?
even thinking about it.
They're not even
interested in us.
They're just thinking about what other people think of them.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so this is how all of our energy becomes external, right? And when we have a need and we don't know how to self-soothe, we always look for it externally, okay? We will always look for that need to be met in someone. So that's the vacuum. So the question is, what vacuums are you creating in your life? Like, are you creating a vacuum for something toxic to come in? Or are you creating a vacuum for something amazing and wonderful to come in? And a lot of that is based on the back end.
No, I was just trying to process self-soothing, and I was thinking, what does that look like? And I was like,
Everyone's way to self, mine will be a bath. I could sit in the bath for 3 hours, just refilling every 40 minutes, you know, and driving my husband crazy. And no hot water for anyone else. I can use up the whole tank quite happily. And Alexia is the same, my youngest. Like, she'll go into the bath and she'll just be there for hours, and she takes Netflix in, and you know, she's a goner for like 2 hours. I'm like, oh my god, that is my child.
and it's the generation. When you're talking about self-soothing, you're actually looking at the bottom of the glass, you know, nice glass of red or whatever. So there's that side of it. And how far do you go into that self-soothing?
Yeah, so
to then have an expectation that actually there is a responsibility as partners to sort of look after somebody, to say, hey, look, you know, something doesn't feel right or whatever.
yeah, so okay, I'm gonna what's an example from this week that I was gonna tell you? Got my personal relationship out there, shall I? Because you know, Celine challenges me a lot. I love him, but my age drives me nuts. But you know, and he gets really triggered by me as well. Like, I mean, I drive him insane, and we're both quite fiery, passionate people, you know. Yeah, we're both very Latin, you know, and like Greek and French. It's like, I'm Greek, and so well, I'm Greek Kiwi, but yeah. So you've got this, like, you know, when you've got two, you know, big personalities, then you've got to really both want change. And so, you know, that change starts to happen when you really start observing your partner. Okay, so, you know, I spent a long time in relationship bitching and moaning and expecting change while being in my inverted, like very fully in my inverted. And I could be in my divine feminine out in the world with friends and work, and then I would turn around in the afternoon and move straight into my inverted. And once you're in this pattern, it was a real conscious decision to pull yourself out of it, just like depression, just like anything else. It's a hugely conscious decision to start pulling yourself out of it. Okay. Like menopause. Yeah, like any of these stages.
It just becomes bartering in the end.
It is all bartering.
Two inverse, it's just bartering.
That's
you know,
the, yeah.
And nothing is authentic then.
That's the energetic marketplace, you know. If you've got two people fighting over the price of nothing, then, you know, no one comes out better off. So, you know, the biggest thing that for me, we are programmed with from birth is competition and comparison.
Yeah.
Right? This is why I won't look at my children's school reports. This is why I don't give a crap about their grades. This is why I never ask them about their tests or look in their school books. I don't, I barely acknowledge anything. Like if they get an award, you know, if they got an award at primary school, I'd be like, oh, that's nice. No, I never gave it any attention because I don't want them to seek my approval to validate who they are. Okay. Seek their own approval. Yeah. Are you, you know, are you happy with that? Like, I just tell them, don't be lazy. Like, just don't be lazy. Just do whatever you want to do, but just don't be lazy. Just don't sit on your ass. They do like to do that too. But yeah, that's my main thing is, you know, don't be lazy in life, but also I don't give a crap about your grades. I said to the, you know, I've always said to them, the only thing I care about at all in your whole schooling is the friends you make. Choose your friends wisely. Choose them carefully because the people you surround yourself with will be the best you can be. And so surround yourself with people that you admire and that motivate you to feel good. And so, you know, their friends can't believe that I've never opened a report. What's going on down there, Rita? Sorry. Okay, does anyone have any questions about this or anything?
How do I deprogram my child?
Okay. You deprogram your child through deprogramming yourself.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like, okay, I get that. But when he goes to school, when he's put on the kids, like you have to be this, you have to be that. Like, no, like for example, Leo wasn't reading last year, and then his teacher said to him, "It's like, well, you're not good enough. Your reading's too bad to be able to get help, right?" But how can I deprogram those comments from these teachers and from the society that he's bringing up?
Yeah. So the school system is designed for competition and comparison. And that's why all the way through school, I won't acknowledge any wins. Okay, because as high as you go, you will go equally as low. So if I'm like, oh my God, so proud of you, oh my God, that's their validation. So then the minute they go and they're failing at something, they're down equally as low. Okay, so as high as we put them, we're also training them to go equally as low, as above, so below. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I
Yes,
think
it
that we
does.
should take my child on for a bit.
So I will not acknowledge anything that is built on competition or comparison. What if we had no competitions? What if we had no prizes? What if we had no school reports? What if we had no exams?
John
Sarah.
Lennon's Imagine.
Sarah has removed her child from that system.
John Lennon's Imagine.
Yeah, imagine all the people.
What would then be the drivers for excellence?
Yourself.
Straight.
The greater good. The greater good. So Sarah's taken her kids to the Green School, where all of that's being removed, and they are building the entrepreneurs of the future. They are giving them creative license to experiment. They're teaching them about the planet. They're teaching them to create things for the greater good.
That's the distinction.
Yeah.
Drive
Not service
for
to
that,
self.
not the individual.
Not service to self.
Community.
School is service to self. Yeah, not service to matrix. This is the greater good.
What is truly me, or is it what's become?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to think about. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, what we do is we create our identity based on all this external validation, right? So we are like, oh, I did really well at work and I got a promotion and a pay rise, I'm amazing. And then it's like, oh, someone got that pay rise over me and they got that promotion over me, I'm a piece of shit, right? That tends to be how our thing goes. Oh, look at that person, she's she's in the same industry as me, she's a healer, and oh my God, she's got amazing like social media presence and everyone's talking about her. I'm just like stuck in my little, clinic at home, and I'm just like, I'm a nobody, nobody knows about me, I'm crap. Okay, so what is this? This is our self-talk, right? There's nothing that separates me from that person except what I'm telling myself. Okay, so what happens is when you remove all that external validation, when you remove it all, you have an identity crisis. Okay, it's like, well, who the hell am I then? So the way I see it is we go through 6 steps in our life, hopefully. So we start off. Okay, we start off asleep. And what does it mean to be asleep? What was that? So we are operating from our programs. So that's when we're coded young, we have trauma, we have parental messes, we have all our parents' coding put onto us, and they're from a whole different generation. And our kids are from a whole different generation. So our parents come from the kind of seen and not heard. And then we were kind of brought up in that, but just starting to break free, and and our kids are like free, they're not really in that paradigm. So the schools are kind of giving this illusion that they're bringing out the creativity in kids. They give this illusion that they're doing all this stuff, but they still have competition and comparison all the way through school. Okay. And it sets us up for failure in every area of our life. So when we're asleep, we're operating from our programs. We're operating from our soul line of pain. And what will happen is, talk about this more tomorrow, we will repeat our soul line cycle of trauma over and over until we crack it. Okay. The second stage is we have a pivotal moment. So something happens that's there to shift your soul. And it's usually not very pleasant. So it's not like the job promotion isn't the thing that's there to shift your soul. It will be something like an illness, a trauma, a partner has an affair, your whole world is kind of like shattered, like the glass is shattered. And we get cancer, or you have this pivotal moment, and in that pivotal moment something really big happens, and that is the beginning of cracking you out of the matrix. And this can go on for a long time. So then at the next stage, it's just how it comes through for me. The sinkhole is what I like to call it. So in the sinkhole, you go down real hard, right? In the sinkhole, you enter the long dark night of the soul. You question everything. You question everything you've learned, everything you know. You question your identity. You often disconnect from people. You often withdraw, become really introverted, you isolated, you feel like you can't relate to anyone anymore, you feel like no one can relate to you. You don't feel like anyone really gets you anymore. You often feel really broken, and you're often in blame, judgment, and anger, and bitterness. And you can be in there for years, depending how resistant you are. So you can sit in that place for a decade. They don't care. Spirit doesn't care. Spirit's like, when you're ready, and you're like, oh. So you can go into that place and you can be in that darkness, and spirit does not give a crap how long you sit there. They will just wait there toe tapping until you finally decide you can't handle one more day of it. And then you move into self-discovery. And in self-discovery, when you finally decide to start crawling out of that hole and you move into self-discovery, basically this is an incredible time, because this is when we move out of our programs and we start to self-reflect. And we often discover some pretty uncomfortable things when we start to self-reflect. And one of the uncomfortable things that we often discover is that we had a role in it. That what happened to us was something that we allowed to happen. We actually, no matter how awful it was, no matter how mean or abusive that husband was, You know, I've got people that have been in abusive relationships for 18, 20 years, highly abusive, dangerous. And, you know, when they come to me, they're usually in the sinkhole. This is usually when I get people, right? I get them in the sinkhole. And that's when they'll come and get on the table. And as you know, I like to push people. So, you know, I'll push people to just try and move a little bit faster into this one. So I always know when someone's had a really big shift, because instead of coming in and saying, oh, you know, my partner's an asshole, or this or that, or, you know, I've been sick for years and I'm, you know, it's poor me. They suddenly come in and they're like, oh my God, like, I just realized I have not been attending to myself for years. Like, I realized that I've never known how to make myself happy. And how could anyone else make me happy if I don't know how to make myself happy? You know, they have these breakthrough moments of realizing that no one else is going to, you know, ascend for you. That it's a job only you can do. And that can be a really hard thing to come to terms with, you know. And I spent years in sort of, you know, the blame game and stuff, because that was how it was modeled to me. You know, my mum had a terrible case of the poor me's, you know, the poor me syndrome, I call it. And we get stuck in that poor me syndrome really deep. And so when we actually come into the point where we had a role where, you know, we had no boundaries, we, you know, we just were manipulative, or we were like, whatever we were, you know, we were mean too, like, or we just completely overcompromised constantly, and we allowed all sorts of energies in, and we, you know, it goes on and on and on. But when you have that moment of, oh my God, you know, I'm the one that's been letting myself down for years because I never put a boundary in place, that's when something amazing happens.
I think stuff that was going through my head was that the sinkhole, sometimes it gets comfortable.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like a
Totally.
dirty bath water that you just think,
Yeah.
well, it's slightly warmer.
And depression is the same. Depression is like, I know it sounds really harsh, and I've been through, you know, decades of my mum's depression and my own. And the simple fact is, depression is like a comfort blanket. We pull it back over ourselves. It feels familiar and warm, and it's like, oh yeah, I want to go back and slide into that, because that gives me an excuse to hide away from the world and not face anyone. And it's really hard to drag yourself out of the mud. You know, it's like, oh, I can't be bothered doing that. I'm just going to put the blanket back over me. You know, because it actually takes energy and conscious choice. It is conscious choice. Okay. When you've been stuck in your programs for a lifetime, so, you know, there is the element of flow, but flow is when you're already in your new programs. It's when you're already reprogramming yourself. And the more you reprogram yourself, the more flow you have, right? But to move from here to here is very uncomfortable. It is not natural, because everything you're doing to come into here goes against your programming. Okay? So if you have been programmed to be a victim your whole childhood, and you hold that victim mentality, then to start saying things like, I'm not a fucking victim, that's not my story anymore, I don't want to hold that energy anymore. And then to actually, you know, someone comes in and they start controlling you, and it's so much easier to slide into your program of accepting it than it is to go, no, I don't want that. And that feels really uncomfortable, right? Who's done that? Who's done something to reprogram themselves and it's super uncomfortable, right? It does not feel natural and it's not a natural flow. And so a lot of us feel that because it's hard, it's too hard. Okay. But who knows the story of the two wolves? Who doesn't know the story of the two wolves? Where you've got a man, which wolf are you feeding, right? You've got the wolf that that is full of negativity and bitterness and anger and judgment. And then you've got the wolf that is loving kindness and compassion and tolerance and deep sort of honoring, whatever, you know. And, you know, and the grandfather's telling the son, the Mokapuna, about these two wolves, and they're always in battle. These two wolves are always fighting each other. And the boy says, which one wins? And the grandfather says, whichever one you feed. And so it is, if you are always feeding that negative wolf, it is only pure conscious decision and choice to feed the other wolf. That wolf will not get fed if you don't give it any food, right? So in terms of manifestation, how are you going to manifest something positive if you're always feeding the negative wolf? Yeah. I mean, you cannot be in manifestation energy if you're always over here feeding your leftovers to that wolf. You will manifest nothing. It is conscious choice to pull yourself away from that wolf, because that wolf's now got quite a lot of power because you've been feeding it for a really long time. And so the other wolf is very weak. And to pull yourself away from that wolf and start feeding this one takes a lot of energy in the beginning. And it's really easy to just swing back to this one because that one's already holding more power. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it is pure conscious choice. It is like, no more. I do not feed you anymore. I do not accept that. I do not consent to you being in control of me for one more day. I am feeding this wolf with love and non-judgment and tolerance and compassion. And these two wolves are basically you, right? Just in case that wasn't obvious.
So now, we're thinking about that, that's internal boundaries with ourselves.
Yeah,
It's ready to separate ourselves within ourselves.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point because we do have internal boundaries and external boundaries. But our internal boundaries define our external ones, pretty much. So, but then, you know, you've got the other boundaries, which is within the ether, which is, you know, kind of a different set of parameters, but the same thing. You know, if you're working in the ether a lot and you're, you know, working with energies and entities, you have to have exactly the same boundaries for them as you do for the people in your life. And you'll find that if you've got toxic people coming into your life, you'll have toxic entities coming through as well. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just the way it is. But yeah,
There's a shift, there's been a shift in terms of helping that process of where we're going and how we've developed as society. So when I was going through this stage, being awake or self-discovery was the assertive training that we did, which is saying no and using the right language and all the rest of it. To what we're talking about today, which is going to the core, if you like, when you talk about programming.
yeah,
That was unheard of 10 years ago. 15 years
that's
ago.
right. We couldn't even hold this energy on the planet 10 years ago.
No.
Like the energy on the planet is now such that, you know, say 30 years ago, the only people that could hold you know, certain energies on the planet would be shamans and people that spent years
over here.
yeah, so that's why we had masters and gurus, right? But of course, because we were such externally needy people, and externally hungry people for validation, we created a vacuum for toxic gurus and a complete toxicity within that environment. But that served a purpose because all that toxicity within it, because we got lazy, right? When you have gurus, you get lazy. It's like, oh, you know, I can sit in my programming, but listen to that guru and it makes me feel nice for a while. And then I'll go back to my programming. But when you've got that toxicity coming through, you know, the gurus, then, you know, it starts to gather speed. And then suddenly it's like, shit, can I trust the gurus now?
Yeah.
Like, who can I trust? So then you are forced into this journey back to trusting yourself. So everything serves a purpose. Every narcissist serves a purpose. Every asshole serves a purpose. Every corrupted guru serves a purpose, which is to train us how to listen to our truthometer. And we all have an internal truthometer, and we've been conditioned and programmed out of listening to it. And we have to come back to that. So the next stage is growth. And in growth, what's happening is we're moving out of the old vibration. So in all of these, we're still in the old vibration. We're in so much pain and we're in so much agony that we just almost can't hold it. And then we have this incredible light bulb go off, and then we start growing. And when we're growing, we're actually growing completely out of the matrix. And we're growing into the new earth vibration. We're growing into who we are meant to be. And what happens in this period is that we begin to love ourselves, no matter what. Whereas in this period, we only love ourselves conditionally when we get external validation. But in this period, we start going, wow, you know, look what I went through. I really compromised my integrity there so many times. I really humiliated myself. I let myself down. I shamed myself. I love myself anyway. It's okay, Mel. You've done everything wrong for years. I still love you. All right, we come into this acceptance. We come into things like meditation. We come into conscious living. And conscious living is where we are no longer asleep and operating from our programs. We're still making mistakes. I still do dumb shit all the time, like totally. But I now am more conscious of it. And, you know, and like we're still getting stressed about this move and things. And, you know, I can still fall into an old pattern and go to Salim and be like, you know, whoa, we want to do this and you haven't gone through that box and, you know, look at the state of the place and then he's looking at me like, I'm not putting up with that shit anymore. Like, you know, that's your old program and you can, you know, you can go suck that up. And then I'm sort of like all a bit huffy. And then I self-reflect, you know, and I'm like, okay, that came from, you know, that came from here. And I did not go to him with the right language, right? I did not go to him with respect and reverence and honoring. I went to him from my programming, and he responded to my energy immediately by being really defensive and triggered. And immediately, you know, you've got the two wolves in battle, right? And so somebody has to back down. And when you've got two big personalities, it's like, you know, it can be challenging. But both of us have gone on this journey where we both have learned to back down. And so, you know, I walked away for a bit and had a bit of self-reflection, and then I went back and I said sorry, and we had a cuddle and it was all good. But, you know, he had also said something during the week, I can't remember what it was. I was like, oh my God, I've got to tell him what it was. But he'd said something that was like super triggering. So he got really defensive and a bit aggressive, you know, about something that wasn't being done. I can't remember what it was. And my inner child, my old program, because, you know, of my mother, is to immediately feel wounded to the core and really triggered and really my hurt child immediately steps forward and wants to sulk and disassociate and cut them off, right? That's what my inner child wants to do. And I have to fight my programming, and I had to walk away, and I had to have this conversation with myself. This is how you deprogram, Charlotte, right? I had to walk away and I had this conversation with myself and say, wow, you know, where's that coming from? That's my inner child. Wow, yeah, she's feeling really triggered. And then I, you know, sort of went, well, why am I so triggered? This is not a personal thing. He's feeling really, stressed out. You know, he's trying to work up until the day he leaves. He's trying to sort out all this crap. He's trying to cut trees down. He's trying to, you know, he's under a lot of pressure. And that was not a personal attack. Like, he might have said some wounding things, but it actually wasn't a personal attack. I'm not going to hold that because that doesn't actually belong to me. That's his. And so I went away and I just let it go, right? Whereas letting that sort of thing go used to be really hard for me. I used to go off and I'd have to sulk for a while and I'd have to be really wounded, and then I'd have to like not talk to them so they knew how wounded I was. And, you know, and so,
Yeah. Every time.
you know, you have to let them know, like, and a little tantrum. But so I've had to, you know, really let go of that, push past that programming. Okay, so it doesn't always feel natural. So you're not necessarily going to have the flow when you're trying to reprogram yourself, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Backwards, one step forward.
Yeah, yeah. You're still going to make the same mistakes, but you'll make them less frequently and with a lot more conscious awareness. And that means you can rectify them. And you might start to take a moment before you react. Okay, so instead of just 0 to 100, you take a step back and you're like, whoa, okay, need a moment, have a safe word, whatever it is. I need to step back, I need to self-reflect, I need to, whoa, just take that time. And
Can I ask a question really quickly?
yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you an example to feel like that I think needs more clarification. For example, so yesterday, kids, dad and I, massive argument. Yeah, I wasn't in a great space, so I fought back, right? And I got my point across. Anyway, so today I get a message from him and he's apologized, but I don't want to reply to him because I don't want to validate the way that he treated me yesterday.
Right, okay, but he's apologized, so he's reflected, all right, which means he is trying to work against his natural program. Okay, he's trying to do it. Now, if Salim is really rude to me and I'm like, whoa, you know, I have to think, okay, I don't have to hold that was his rudeness. And then if he comes back to me and says, pardon, you know, I didn't. Pardon, Sherry. What am I going to say?
I'm just like butter. Every time.
Libra. My first boyfriend was a Libra and I swore I'd never go out with a Libra.
Apology might not be.
Okay.
Honest.
Okay, you can have an inauthentic apology.
It was conditional, it was a conditional
Yeah, yeah.
apology. So it was
Okay.
like, I'm sorry for saying this, but
This is.
I'm not sorry for saying that. And
Okay,
it's like, well, this is a conditional apology, so I'm not gonna accept it.
okay, this is where you put an energetic boundary, okay? And your silence will speak louder than words. So this is where your energy boundary says, I will not hold 1 ounce of that for you because that is yours to hold. That crap is not mine, that belongs to you and you can keep it there. And you can even put your hand out. Like if you just imagine a situation where you've been really challenged, where you don't want to accept something from someone and just put your hand out, just literally, everyone just put your hand out and feel where that energy is. Think about that moment, feel where that energy is. And can you feel a wall when you put your hand out? Okay, it's I'm physically doing something to create an energetic block. If I'm getting a really bad psychic attack and I always get it through here, I'll hold my hand up and I'll be like, hell to the no. You stay out. You are not welcome here. You do not have my consent to cross that boundary. There's my boundary. Don't cross it. Okay, so I'm physically doing something to create an energy boundary. Yeah.
Now, there's this difference of like the opportunity to call someone out on a teaching moment versus recognizing what they're doing and then maybe the boundary of that. And sometimes, in my experience, I'm overly empathetic and I always believe there's another side of the story there. I see coming in with that because I've had a good day or it's their little child playing now or something I forgive that outburst. But sometimes if I don't boundary that, I'm then getting weak and
Yeah.
boundless.
Yeah, so in each moment, you're dealing with different people. And this is, the whole pick your battles thing, right? And you don't want to always be in battle. But there will be certain times where if you don't speak, you'll be depleted. Okay, and in those moments, you can call someone out. So if I've got someone that's really, speaking a lot of bullshit, I'll be like, I'll just say one thing, and it might be something like, well, I don't personally agree with that. I'm just gonna call, I'm just gonna call that how I see it, and I don't see that as truth. And then I won't say anything else, and they might go, and I'll be like, right, like, you have yours, like you do you, I'll do me. Yeah, I'm cool. Like, and it works really well because I've got nothing to latch onto. The only thing they can latch onto is your reaction. Right? If you're Vaseline, then they're just like this. Like, that's how I see it. I just put Vaseline around my energy field. And then they're just like, they can't get a latch on anything. They can only get a foothold on your reaction. So they're looking for your reaction. That's their child wanting attention. That's their need for validation, right? And so what I do by saying something like that, I'm saying, I see you and I see what you're doing. You have not pulled the wool over my eyes, but I'm also not engaging and I'm not interested in having a battle. So, and then I'll just walk away. And then I've set a really powerful energy boundary with that person where they feel quite uncomfortable around me. And yeah, and then they often come back with more authenticity. So that I just said, or
Yeah, like when you're in a context. you defense, you'll come back to, so I've said something, then you're like, oh, I don't like what that sounded like, I'm not going to engage, you said, oh, I don't hear that from you.
Well, I'll usually just say, I don't agree with that, that's not my truth. You do you, and if they start to argue, I'll just be like, no, it's all right, you do you.
Yeah.
I'll do me, we don't agree on that, that's cool.
I find it really powerful.
It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
powerful
yeah.
because you're not caring enough
Yeah.
to even engage in battle, and that drives them nuts.
Yeah.
But they also, yeah, they feel really, all their shame and things start to come up because they've been seen. And when you call them out quite calmly, they feel really uncomfortable because their subconscious, they'll often do a movement like Jerry said, and they'll often, you'll get this kind of slightly aggressive thing sometimes. You get all kinds of stuff that comes out in the physical because their subconscious is suddenly coming into the conscious. But what you've done is you have created your boundary by saying, I do not accept that. I do not accept what you're giving me. I'm just going to hold it out for you. But you have not engaged in battle. And then the final stage is ascension.
Wow.
And in ascension, you anchor the new vibration, right? So this is where you start to recognize what's going on in the world. You start to see other people's programs, not just your own. And you want to pull people up with you. And you start anchoring little lights everywhere. And people start coming to you because they can sense the change in your vibration. They feel that shift, right? And so your challenge around here is to maintain stability, because what often happens is people start kind of flocking to you. You start to get this new power. You start to be really visible, and that can be a bit uncomfortable because you're not used to being visible, and you're shining this different light. You start to have a lot of power around people, and you have to make sure that you don't ever slip back into using your old programs to manipulate anyone, because you have a lot of power when you're in the ascension energy. In that ascension energy, you start to desire to pull people up out of the sinkhole with you. But your role in the ascension energy is simply to walk and attract people. And this is the Jesus energy, right? This is what everyone has this is why Jesus's light has lasted 2,000 years. It's because he simply walked as light, and he created such an incredible, astonishing following that he was an enormous threat to religion. Jesus was not religious. Jesus was anchoring light into areas where religion had held power and control for, a long time. So, this is the new earth energy. And when we're in here, we're cracked out of the matrix. You can't really go back to the matrix. I mean, you could, but it's
Really uncomfortable.
it's really uncomfortable. And you'll usually get up the bum at some point, if you're getting a little bit too comfy back in the matrix. So, and really it can be hard in that energy, because you've got to try and maintain stability around all the people that are going through this, because everyone has to go through most of these stages, in my experience. And everyone's at a different stage, and we have to be able to accept that. We have to accept that not everyone is where you are, because you've all done a journey and you've all been through a lot. And so you're gonna find that, you know, there's a lot of people that are not at your level. And it's just about holding that stability for them, holding your own equilibrium, and placing really powerful boundaries constantly, both energetic and physical boundaries, and in both realms. Does that all make sense?
Like with that stage you get to, there's that kind of pull towards power over paradigm and perception, because it's so amazing and you want to share it.
Yeah.
and tell everyone
Yeah.
about it.
Yes. Yes.
Should it be flipped to power with versus power over?
Yes.
I struggle with power. because
Yeah.
I'm so kind of
We have to redefine the energy behind certain words. And power is probably one of the most corrupted words in the English language. And that's with good reason. It's because that's our sacred source, our sacred essence. So I did a session with Mina. I'm just going to talk about Mina. And I had this incredible download with her. And it made me very emotional, actually, because I saw within her this light, you know, and I see the torch in people, but I saw this light and I had the words very clearly, sacred essence. And what I saw, you know, at first I saw it through a lot of Indian women, but I have since started to see it in the female line, and that's why we're all women here, quite frankly, because, you know, I was talking about this with Noelle earlier, that the women are here to lead the way, right? The men will only change when we all say no. We have certain men that I call plants, and they've come in quite enlightened, and they're just a plant here, a plant there, a plant there, a plant there. And they are really struggling under the weight of trying to pull the men up. But overall, the men are only going to change when we say no. And so what happens is we start to put all these energetic boundaries in place. We start to just not accept being treated in a certain way. And we start coming into our own divinity and stepping out of our inverted patterns. And as we do that, we place loving boundaries into our realms, both physical and etheric. And you know, you often get a bit of pushback because people kind of don't know you in that form. They want to put you back where they get you. You know, it's like, well, I understood you there, and that's where you've always been. I haven't changed. Why have you changed? And so you'll get that kind of pushback, and you have to hold those boundaries. You know, it's like hold, and it's, you know, and that's challenging. But the men will only change when we accept nothing less than what we are worth. Okay, it's just the way it is, and they will change, because, you know, the way it is that when you're into these two energies, something incredible happens to your auric and energetic fields, and you are powering out this different energy, right? You're like 1,000 light bulbs, and everyone can see it. It's like, you don't need to say a word. Everybody can see it when you walk into a room. It's like, ooh, you know, and you have to just hold that energy. That's actually all you have to do, but it's bloody hard to do that. Like, it's really easy to slide back and start mirroring people. Who has seen Wild Wild Country? Oh my God, isn't that the perfect example of, like, it's Osho Zen, and he starts this amazing community of incredibly happy people building this, kind of commune. And yeah, they were kind of free-loving hippies and all of that, but they had doctors and lawyers, and people gave up all their life savings and moved into this place and invested, and it was actually really beautiful. It's a brilliantly done documentary. And what happened was all the neighboring towns started getting really hateful and threatening and walking around with guns and stuff, and they started getting really scared. And they started mirroring the townspeople. They were like, well, we need to get guns, we need to protect ourselves, we need to do this and this and this. And they started mirroring all these really aggressive people by matching them energetically. So they were all in this quite ascended energy, and they dropped massively in vibration because of the incoming psychic attack and the incoming physical threat of what was going on around them. Rather than holding their vibration, they actually descended into this kind of madness, which completely destroyed the community. So that's a really good example of how we can fall backwards by mirroring, and how important it is to hold that stability of our vibration. And then on the flip side, who's seen 13 Lives? I just saw that recently. Can't stop talking about it to everyone. Best movie ever. Amazon Prime. And it is honestly the most mind-blowing movie I've seen in years. And it's about the Thai boys that got stuck in the cave. I had absolutely no idea how unbelievable that rescue mission was. I mean, I knew it was incredible, but I had no idea how mind-blowingly incredible and unbelievable that they all survived. Absolutely unbelievable. But anyway, they're stuck in the cave 2.5 kilometers deep. They're like 13 boys or whatever, and their coach. And they're there for 10 days before they're even found, surrounded by water on this little kind of ledge thing. And they, so deep, all their torches must have run out. They must have been sitting there with no food, complete pitch black, terrified, all these young boys. And I said, they didn't even get found for 10 days. I think it took the divers 10 days to find them. But so they sat there for 10 days. And I remember saying to Celine, my God, we were just like this the whole way through the movie. I couldn't stop crying. And I said to Celine, I don't think Western boys would have survived. I don't think for a second that any of our children could have survived 10 days before they were found. I said, what happened in that cave? And so we did some research, and their soccer coach had been training for 10 years to be a Buddhist monk.
No.
Wow.
And he would talk to them about mind over fear, about bringing the heart in. He would sit them in meditation. He would take them through breathing exercises. And he did this all day, every day for 10 days. And he held space for them, and he kept them alive. And all the parents, when they finally found these boys, they then had to leave them again with nothing except a few muesli bars, because they finally found them. And, it was 7 hours in to find them, which means it's 7 hours back per child.
Yeah.
And they came back out, and they said, all those boys are going to die because we'll never get them out. We can't take a child for 7 hours underwater. And so then this unbelievable coming together of 50 countries and the best minds in the world came together to create this incredible solution. I won't ruin it.
You can watch it.
But watch it. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God.
Moving on now.
I know. Movies with Mel. So anyway, the whole thing about that is that you have this mind, you have this, kind of mind over fear. And it's about how we get control of our mind. And when we do get control of our mind and our ego itself, which is, easiest done through meditation, but there are other methods. But for me, meditation has always been the easiest way to manage it because, if you're meditating every day, you are training your mind, right? You are training your mind to be a servant to the heart, and your mind should always be a servant to the heart, not the other way around. So when you're doing this, you are training your mind how to be in control. And that's what he was doing, keeping these children alive. What I want to do is go through some questions with you. So I want you to write down and really think about some of these answers. Put down. Actually, let's just take a little toilet break, a little 5 minutes. Or maybe break. Or does anyone have any questions or anything? No. That sounds a professional. Okay, so I want to talk about something. The sacred essence that I was talking about that I saw with Mina was, it was on the female line. So what it looked like to me was that this sacred secret, that a sacred secret about who we truly are has been hidden inside the women. And that's why women have been so subjugated and beaten down and controlled and manipulated. And it is because the dark forces cannot take it out of us. It has been genetically imprinted on the female line. But they can sure as hell try and hide it from us. And the easiest way to do that is to break us down so much that we can't see it and we forget that we have it. And so that was really shocking when I saw that. And but it explained a lot about the history of women. And it's almost like some of I'm just sort of, this is just sort of something coming through now, but take it or leave it. It's almost as though everything after that has been a distraction, which is, all the LGBTQSRT, whatever. Every other subjugation has almost felt like a distraction to distract us from the fact that actually, women have been subjugated since almost the beginning of time. Except from the time before when we were this incredible society where the women held the balance. And the way I see it is when a woman is held in divine reverence, when the man stands with his arm at her back and an arm out and presents her to the world, she can hold the world like Atlas on her shoulders. So I can hold everything. I can do the kids. I can manage so many things if I have Celine's hand on my back and one arm out here just presenting me to the world and holding space for me and being an emotional support. But if we have these toxic relationships and relationships where we feel less than and we do not honor ourselves first, then you know, we get depleted really easily, we get pulled down, and then we start moving into our inverted forms. But this sacred essence that's hidden in the women is why the women must lead the way. And it's why we've got to stop expecting the man to change for us. It's why we must be the change. And yeah,
Because also at the same time, it's like speaking with a lot of men, like ex-Carl, which is Vanessa's father, and my partner I live with now, and also my son. So a lot of them, what they're feeling too, is that women have also taken who they are and used it against them, and
that's
they've
right.
lost their
but that's still
their
the
power and their manhood.
Yeah.
Particularly my son, who
Yeah.
lives at the time and he's only 18.
yeah, but that's
So-
still the inverted
It's
feminine.
completely
All the bra burning and you know, we've got to fight the man to get
Yeah.
to the top. It's all the
Very-
inverted feminine.
yeah.
That is not female power.
No.
That is not the divine feminine
Very
or the
strange.
divine masculine within the divine.
And then they feel broken down, they can't
That's right.
step forward because they don't be also supported.
They've
by
given
them.
up.
Yeah,
They've given up.
the whole thing.
Okay, so that is a lot of the new earth energies within the masculine that is starting to come through. So there's an awful lot of single women in the 40 plus range who cannot find a man because the men in that age range are in the old vibration. I'm not saying all of them, obviously I'm generalizing.
Yeah.
The special men,
Very limited
and like I
pool.
say, but it is a limited pool. I'm not gonna lie, it's a limited pool. But there's the new earth energies coming through in the men, particularly in the boys.
Yeah.
And that energy is different. And you can see it's different. Look at your boy, Fishler. Like Eric is holding that energy big time.
So well.
So well. He's got
Doesn't
most
realize it,
amazing energy. But I've already vexed him. Oh, it's already taken.
He'll be fine with that.
You know, she's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, imagine. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
That works for me.
Right, works for me too.
Done. So-
You're welcome, Eric.
He'll be fine.
Classic, I love it. Yeah, so there is that new earth boy coming through. But they have to fight their way forward, right? This is not just the boys, all the new earth children are struggling. And they are struggling because they are being emasculated and because we are trying to gender neutralize everyone.
Yeah. And if they don't.
And, you know, we are not gender neutral. Like, I'm sorry, but we are not gender neutral. And I'm not saying that there's no trans people or that there's no anything, whatever, non-binary. I've never heard that before though, but I'm not saying that these people do not exist. What I'm saying is that we are a split balance, right? And we are not, as a whole, a gender neutral society. But what you have now, I mean, this is a whole other thing that I'm not going to deep dive into today, but you know, we do have a society that is being engineered towards non-procreation. And that is a deliberate design.
That's gonna impact on union. Like,
Absolutely.
do I feel and lost?
It is engineered.
Yeah.
It's engineered.
Yeah.
What was the name?
So when you say just stop over programming. Break down the family.
Break down the family unit, break down community, loyalty to the state, asexual, non-binary, you know, sterile people, completely attacking our DNA, like,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So, but that's like a whole other, you know, can of worms that I'm not gonna go into. It's a big one, yeah, yeah. It's a big one.
These new stars in children.
Yeah.
They don't want these new souls.
Yeah, there's a reason we have an awful lot of dead babies over the past couple of years, and it's because they're trying to get in, and whew, they're trying to get in, and they're being, you know, taken out, but they can't stop it. They can't stop it, but they're just trying to get in the way as much as possible. They're desperate, yeah. They're desperate because it cannot be stopped.
Yeah. They lost.
And so, you know, they're just trying every angle, but the new energies pouring in over the last 100 years is, you know, pretty dramatic. And that's this massive population increase. We have an unbelievable amount of new souls on the planet that, you know, and Heidi's one of them. You know, souls that have come in from other places that are a lot more evolved, that have from what I see, had less than 100 years on you.
Wow.
So I don't
No.
I don't see Heidi as having any more than sort of maybe 3 or 4, 5 tops. Like,
How many lives do you think?
well, you know, I go back thousands of years here to the time before. So I've been, you know, just recycling for forever. And other people have, but we've got an enormous amount of new souls coming in who have never been to Earth. And they've been coming in, and they're pouring now because we couldn't hold them before because we had too much density, you know. We could not hold one of those souls in physical form. Someone like Jesus, you know, would come in and look at that persecution. How long did he live from the moment he was actually public to the moment he died? Was it 3 years?
A bit long.
Maybe 5 years?
He's quite young.
He was about 33, yeah. So 33, but he didn't even come on the scene until like his mid-20s, the late 20s. So, you know, he was primed his whole life within the Essenes, within highly secret block cell secrecy communities of the Essenes, and he was held in deep secrecy until he was strong enough, because they all knew what was going to happen, until he was strong enough to be allowed out into that density. And he knew he wasn't going to last long within that density. Now, the souls that are coming in now are of such magnitude, lots of them are going to be holding that vibration. There's going to be lots of miracles. There's going to be lots of huge changes, and it's already happening. Like, you know, we're having miracles in this room. We're having miracles all the time starting to happen, and it's happening faster, and we're in more flow, and things are just, you know, moving like this now. It's so fast. And that's because every time we get a new wave of that energy coming in, of these new souls, the entire planet has a shift in vibration. So if you have 1 million new souls coming into the planet and being birthed, and they're birthed through the canal, and they leave that light in the canal of the parent, come out, and then you know, they are struggling. They're like already, you know, holding that new vibration, anchoring it, sending it out, but they're having to walk through the world like, holy crap, you know, everything feels heavy, everything feels like, what am I in here? It's like, for them, it's like wading through sludge, because you know, they're of such a high frequency. So I'll get into more of that tomorrow anyway, but does that make sense?
Yeah. What you're saying is that we should just have lots of savings.
Yeah, basically. Frank it, Charlotte. I can't.
No, I think.
Get on with it.
Right, oh, so I haven't heard. Great. Students.
There's also be nurturing.
Yes, I think a whole new school is gonna spring up. There's a new school in Australia, which is an online school of learning for teachers that were mandated, and they teach online, live, and then they create community pods. So all the children that are with that school in that area get together physically and create community gardens and expand.
It's already good, I think.
It's already happening.
I think.
It's already happening.
Right, we'll do it.
This is a fantastic, I mean, if we had that in New, I've written to them, if we had it in New Zealand, I'd be on it. Okay, pen and paper. It's still a bit of work. I'm gonna ask you some questions and you're gonna write down some. Okay. Alrighty. This is a self-reflection.
Really loud, sorry.
All right. I want you to write down, should we just start with a bang?
Yeah.
What are you most ashamed of?
Oh.
You're welcome. Ever. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You choose. No rules. This is so private. Don't worry, I'm not gonna let you read it out. This is your, I know I said, you know, you'll get vulnerable, but I'm not that mean. I want you to be honest, so it's gonna be hidden. How do I avoid intimacy? So, and that is intimacy in every area of your life. This is not just in a relationship. How do you avoid being super close and being seen? What are your tactics? What am I afraid might happen if I share more of my authentic self with the world or people around me? What am I afraid might happen if I share more of my authentic self with the world or people around me? In what areas, just tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay, right, take time, take time. What am I afraid might happen? How do I avoid intimacy? And by that, I mean, like, if someone steps into your personal zone and wants to really see you, what do you do? If you feel uncomfortable? Do you get angry? Do you reject them? Do you walk away? Do you run?
Do you know how to self-reflect without self-judgment?
How to self.
Self-reflect, how to observe yourself without judging yourself. You might even want to put a percentage. Maybe you can half the time, not half the time. But sometimes you manage it and sometimes you don't. Where do I need more support? What am I releasing? Or what do I need to release that no longer nourishes me? What am I releasing or need to release that no longer nourishes me? Give an example of when you play the victim or the poor me. What am I opening to?
What am I?
Opening to? What am I expanding into? And where am I too rigid? Where am I stuck? Feeling deeper.
Yeah.
You can come back to these.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can come back to these later and add to them. Because this is, you know, continuing self-reflection. So, yeah, these are things you can just work on, a work in progress. And you might want to add lots of stuff later. You might find that this starts a flow of self-reflection. Because it's only through observing these parts of ourselves that we can understand what needs to change. And there's I have this wonderful saying, which I think I've said to the group, which is, with age comes wisdom, and wisdom comes from bad choices. Which I think is my new favorite saying, because it made me feel so much better about all my bad choices over the years.
Was he real life? Was that a question?
No, that was just my favorite saying. I've never heard anything about it before. And I was like, oh, thank God, there's a reason. And how do I validate my anger, anxiety, shame, or fear?
How do I not?
Yeah, so how do you have an emotion and honor it? What do you do to work through these emotions where you honor the fact that you are allowed that emotion? Do you honor it? Do you allow it? Do you allow yourself to be angry or ashamed or anxious? How do you hold space for yourself? Anxiety, shame, fear. Those are just some ideas. Obviously, it's a lot of emotions. If you feel deep envy or resentment, what do you do to work through that? You are comparing yourself to others. How do you honor that feeling that you are having while giving yourself permission to have it and work through it? And if you don't honor it, if you stuff it down or disassociate from it, write that down too. Okay. So those are just some to think about and work through. And what I want to do just to finish up is, because, you know, we've gone through a lot today and it's a lot to process and absorb, and it's going to just need time and space to work through your system, okay? But I want to just finish with some light language to help unclog the throat chakra. So just get into any position where you I'd just like you to all give yourself permission to receive. Alrighty.
I'm ready for you.
You ready? Okay.
Wait.
How's everyone feeling? Need a wee wee? Didn't you go on the wee wee break? Run. Okay. We'll all wait for Ruth.
Come on,
Run. Okay.
Okay, so just set your permissions to receive at the deepest level that you are currently able to at this current frequency that you hold. And set your permissions if you align, obviously. Set your permissions to receive this healing through the ages. For this not just to be held at this lifetime, but for this to be accepted and integrated through all of the soul line at the deepest level of healing that you are able to receive on the soul line for the throat chakra. And I want you to focus on this mantra. Hear me roar.
Lion. Focus on your mantra. Now add, I receive. Permission granted to receive. Not upon. No, 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 no. Yahin wa Yahweh al Yahweh. Unahitwe hoya 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 hoya. Unhurrika Yahweh. Nuhashka umposhaka. In Straba. No. Unukurnato kurea ini husha nahya unuaya kwe ahwe anaya tua yawa ha 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 ha
This is for all the lifetimes of strangulation and voice compression. No other words, I am free. I am free. Let that sink into the soul. You're safe now. You're safe in this lifetime. You are free. Nothing can hold you back. You are free. Not anymore. Your throat is a clear light. Completely free. In that love. Thank you. Honor it. Validate it. Accept it. Nachem, nachem, nachem. Take 3 deep breaths. Breathe out your mouth. Slowly come back. Open your eyes.